Welcome to Fast Pace, the new growth, leadership and management podcast featuring Josh Phegan and Dean Mackie. We wanted to peel back the layers on what happens in the world of fast-paced real estate agencies, from new leadership models to the management challenges we all face each day. This is about a new era in the estate agency sector. Rapid changes to business models, service lines, remuneration and growth present the greatest opportunities that we've ever seen. Sit back, get inspired, grow your skills and reimagine what's possible with Fast Pace. Every Friday, wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Josh Phegan Digital. Leadership styles are a big thing inside a business. And Dean, we used to, talk about the thing of the old carrot and the stick. But when we go and have that conversation around like managing up and thinking about aspirational leadership conversations, it's a really interesting one. And I always ask people, hey, how do you like to be coached? How do you like to be managed? How do you like to receive feedback and advice? And we've done that in some of our previous sessions. But it's a really interesting conversation when you're talking about your management and leadership style, about what you actually do to manage up and how you actually make people feel like they should play at a high level and be their very best when they're in front of you. Dean, you've done a lot of this sort of stuff. You've worked with some of the best in industry over time. What are your thoughts about, your management style and how you manage up to really get people to be able to play at their highest levels?
Josh, this topic comes at an interesting time. I think I'm always reflecting on what are the leadership and management styles you need to succeed in any business. And I think that there are different types of leadership and management styles that you need to be able to adjust. You need to adjust your own style depending upon what your business needs, because if there's no one brush fits all, and I think different people need different things. And like you said, if you ask about the way people want to be coached, everyone's different. So I think that if you can get your head around the fact that your behavioural flexibility is quite crucial in whether you're going to get results or not, then you got to start with that headspace. And people either, in my experience, the old adage of people either move towards things or they move away from it, and identifying if someone's got that bias, which is their preference. Are they enabled and motivated by moving towards, so things that you can and give them something to work towards, or do they actually respond to the stick, right? And the stick does come with a bit of consequence, and I think that you've got to be really careful there, because particularly now, if you look around our industry, there's a lot of a lot more awareness around wellbeing and mental health and those things. And sometimes the stick approach can create a bit of fear and anxiety and can come with a few other issues. So for me, it's understanding your audience and getting clear on what does the business actually need at that point in time. So there's going to be things that are happening in an organisational cycle where you might need to be a little bit more directorial and a little bit more, this is the way it is. And there are other times it's about how do you engage people to find a purposeful vision that everyone's aligned to. So the interesting thing too is, like, in the very early days, and don't take this the wrong way, but when I used to see your name on my phone, it was like you'd stand to attention and the heartbeat would race a little bit and you'd get that, okay, great, Dean's calling, and you really wanted to be on and make sure that you were there, because there was like this aspirational leadership that, you're moving really far ahead. You're on the edge of innovation and excellence and pushing the boundaries, and you're holding yourself to a high level of expectations, and you were doing exactly the same with the people around you and also to the supply base.
Sure.
And so you were getting the best out of people, and not that you would go into a situation to not deliver your best, but you were also, as a supplier, finding new levels of performance that you hadn't yet found before. And that was a really interesting management and leadership style.
Gotcha. I'm interested to hear you use the words used to. So we should have a session and talk about that.
Yeah.
But I think...
Got to keep you on your toes, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. I think with anything like this, it's about... My personal philosophy on this is how do we unlock more? And at Dow Jones, in our business in particular, that's one of the key parts of our vision, is how do we unlock more? So I've set up a framework inside our business to say we are an aspirational leadership business, and we reward curiosity and we reward people sort of having a go, but we also want people to be aligned. So I think if we talk about this topic for the benefit of everyone listening today, is that, and you did ask some real key questions. So for me, I think what you've got to do as a leader, if you want to manage up and you want to get more out of your people and you want to enable them, you've got to realise that people do start off with a negative bias. Like, most people start out with this negative bias, and you can think that you've communicated in a particular way, and often it hasn't landed. So you've got to be always on this. This is an always on strategy, and it's all about making sure you're creating a compelling vision for the future, and it's inspirational for your team. So, we've talked about the fact that for people to make change and to go on transformation and to be inspired, then you've got to make sure that they understand the benefits of what you're doing, because typically in our current environment, we're always pushing for improvement, and improvement requires change and getting better and being prepared to let go of that negative bias. So you've always got to be on the forefront of saying, how do I make sure people understand the benefits that are in the future, because they may be experiencing pain of change now and not seeing that. And it's very easy then to stop and drop off getting better because you're feeling the pain without seeing the benefits. So I think you've got to really focus on giving people, if you sort of put into a couple of key buckets, Josh, I think that the first one would be, how do you make sure that you're keeping people motivated and engaged? And for me, it's giving people that sense of purpose. It's them understanding, okay, if that's where we're going, how do I make an impact? How do I understand what's the impact that I make, and can I see the value in that? And I think that, how if people know what they do makes a difference to that compelling vision, then they're going to stay motivated, they're going to stay engaged. So I think that's one of the key buckets, right? The other one then is goal alignment. Mm-hmm. This is the one I focus on quite a lot, because, you've got, in any real estate firm, you've got often people thinking about themselves as an individual, but not necessarily as well collectively. If we operate, at a particular standard or a particular level as an enterprise, what will that give us? And so always balancing what are the needs of the individual versus the needs of the enterprise, I think, or of your business is quite crucial, because, if you've got a bit of a me as opposed to us, it's a completely different environment and a different culture. And often if you don't have an us mentality, then your goals won't be aligned. And in that can create a lot of problems. So if people understand what the goals of the business are and what they fit in as an alignment, and people understand their purpose, then they're going to prioritize and they're going to make sure that everybody's rowing in the same direction. So for me, bucket being motivation and engagement, goal alignment, and there's two others I think that I really focus on as well, and that's really making sure, because I think people have a lot of limiting beliefs. Mm-hmm. We all do. Because we're all telling ourselves stories, and often those stories are only comprised of a certain set of information you're choosing to select unconsciously. It's all unconscious, right? So, and that can affect people's level of confidence around what they're willing to accept and what they're willing to do and not do, and all that. So for me, I think as a leader, we need to understand what are people's strengths. Obviously, where do they need help? So I'm constantly, when I'm running coaching sessions, talking about, well, okay, cool, it's going well for you, but hey, what do you need help with? Let's sort of get in behind where the gaps are, and try and understand why that could be important, because you don't want to try and fix everyone's deficiencies, right? Because sometimes that's just not going to work. I think sometimes you got to focus on, how do I amplify people's strengths? And if there is a weakness that's causing a blockage, or it is a limiting belief, how do we let that go? You don't have to become an expert, but how do we let that go? So believe, and then also making sure people know that you believe in their potential, but getting them to believe in their potential, right? So giving people future state belief around, hey, you can do this, right? Let's put the processes in place to support you, and give them some proof that they're actually good enough, right? And so I think when you're talking about managing up and helping people sort of, get enabled, then you've got to realize that for them to take on challenges, they've got to have a bit of self-belief. And then the last one for me is all about, in this space, is how do I encourage people to have more creativity and more innovation, right? Because if you're going with if you're on that stick approach that we mentioned earlier, that actually stifles innovation often and stifles creativity, because people then sort of get a bit scared to not want to have a go. They're worried about the consequences, and that can be demotivational. And, it's like people they're compliant, but they're not really committed, right? Mm-hmm. So that's, and by the way, sometimes you need that. There are different times you do need that. But if you're really trying to get people to think outside the box and have a go, and trying to get them to take some risks and look for innovation, then you've got to encourage that rather than punish it.
So let's go back to one of your foundational stories. And it was actually the name of, I think, your property management entity at the time, which was Yellow Brick Road.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because you really get people behind that story. Can you tell us a little bit about the Yellow Brick Road? I know some of us might have seen the movie, but...
Yeah, sure. Look, we don't actually carry that name anymore, but it's certainly a foundational belief that I had coming into any sort of space. And I still, if I look at the Di Jones story at the moment, we've just repurposed that story and packaged it a different way, really, because
the Dorothy and the Tin Man and
all of that. But
that was about the heart and that stuff.
Let's talk about that. Yeah, because if you look at everyone has seen The Wizard of Oz, right? But everyone has a different take on what it's about, and I think I've watched it 50 times, I reckon, and I still enjoy it. But at the heart of it, you've got Dorothy sort of skipping along this. Well, she ends up in this place that
so skipping along a road, a yellow brick road, as it turns out to be, and it's really, in my view, a metaphor. She meets, a Tin Man and the Lion and the Scarecrow, and each of them, for one reason or another, have limiting beliefs around what they have. So, one the Lion feels he's not brave. He doesn't have the heart that he needs to sort of roar and become his real self. And so, and Dorothy's trying to get home. And, look, so the truth is she had ruby shoes on all the time and could have clipped them at any time and gone home, but didn't know it, right? And they end up at the Emerald City, and obviously we all know there's the wizard, and all it took was the wizard to say, hey, you know what, you do have courage, and pins the heart on the line, and all of a sudden he believes that it's true, and guess what, he becomes his true full self, right? And the same applies to every one of those characters. And the wizard wasn't really a wizard. He was just a guy with a machine and some smoke and whatever, telling them that he was the almighty, and that if he said it, then it was okay. And in that instant, it was just a metaphor to say, in that instant they let go of their limiting beliefs, and they believed it to be true. And the minute you believe it to be true, it's possible, right? So I sort of think about, how do you achieve more in life, right? You've got to think about what is the foundation, and I think we've all got that inside ourselves. And so the wizard wasn't really about the Wizard of Emerald. See, the wizard's already inside you. So it's just what's the stories that you're telling yourself that are going to either enable you or disempower you.
And if you think about that, that is ultimately the aspirational leadership there in that one story. In thinking that every single time that you're working with people, you think, what does this person need? Do they need a bit more heart? Do they need a bit more courage? Are they in a position they just need a little bit more self-belief?
Often they know it themselves. It's just a matter of getting them to understand that and having the confidence to do them and go, you know what, it's okay. This is okay. It's not good. It's not bad. Let's let go of the judgment and let's actually do something meaningful.
And there's the power of great storytelling inside of business to actually unlock people's potential and to really get them into a position that they think a lot more about what they can actually go and achieve.